Good evening. I'd like to open tonight's meeting of the Queensbury Zoning Board of Appeals, August 26, 2020. If you haven't been here before, the procedure is fairly simple. Should be a agenda on the back table. We'll call each case up. We'll read the case into the record. We'll allow the applicant to present additional information. We'll question the applicant. If a public hearing has been advertised, then we'll open the public hearing and seek input from the public. And then we'll close the public hearing and we'll poll the board to see what the feelings are about the project, and then we'll proceed from there. Just from a safety standpoint, there are two exits to the north here, generally where you came in. There's two exits behind me to the east, and there's one exit in the far corner there to the south. From a procedure standpoint, we're going to ask that just one person from each case come to the podium. When you're done at the podium, there should be wipes there. We're going to ask you to wipe the podium down, wipe the microphone down, and then the next person can come up. So our first case is Area Variance AV 26-2020, John and Cynthia Randall.
The applicant proposes to maintain a 114 square foot addition to an existing 770 square footprint home. The addition is for a laundry room where a 20-foot setback is required and 17.6 feet is proposed. The relief requested is for setbacks, and that's per section 179-3-040, dimensional requirements in the neighborhood residential zone, NR. The applicant has constructed a 114 square foot residential addition that is 17.6 feet where a 20-foot setback is required. The criteria for considering an area variance according to Chapter 267 of Town Law, in making a determination, the board shall consider 5 criteria. 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties be created by the granting of this area variance. Staff says that minor impacts to the neighborhood may be anticipated. 2, feasible, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. Feasible alternatives may be limited due to the location of the existing home on the property and it being a corner lot. 3, whether the requested area variance is substantial. The relief requested may be considered minimal relevant to the code. The relief requested is 2.4 feet. 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. The project may be considered to have minimal impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the area. And the 5th criteria is whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. The difficulty may be considered self-created. Staff comments. The applicant requests to maintain 114 square foot residential addition to an existing home. The applicant had indicated the addition was built to align with the existing home and wasn't aware of the review requirement. The applicant completed the application process and obtained an updated survey to be compliant with the requirements. The addition is to be used for the laundry room.
How you doing?
How you doing tonight?
Good. State your name for the record, please.
My name's John Randall. I live at 30 Columbia Avenue, Queensbury, New York.
So it's pretty straightforward. Do you have anything to add?
Not really.
So do we have any questions of the applicant?
When did you start the project?
I started the project about 2.5 months ago, and before I finished it, Mr. Haddon come by, said, "You don't have a permit, stop work order on me. Stop right then." So I stopped right then, went through the procedures that I needed to go through, and he made a statement that doesn't matter if I apply for a permit, I wasn't going to get it anyways because of the zoning, the variance. I said, well, I'll go through what I got to go through. So I went through the building codes, and then I proceeded to planning And they told me what I had to do, and I had to get the survey maps and do everything they asked. I paid all the permits, or, you know, fees for all the stuff, and here we are tonight.
Other questions?
So you didn't have a survey map because you just bought that property not too long ago, right?
Me and my wife, I'm 69, she's 71, this is the first time we bought any property. And,
Okay, and you-
yeah, I had it less.
It's too bad
less
you
than
had to get a
year.
survey for this little project.
Yeah, well,
It's a lot of money.
I had other survey maps, but they wouldn't accept them.
Huh.
So I had to have it resurveyed.
The questions? So at this particular time, I'm going to open the public hearing, and I'm going to invite anybody who's watching from the outside who wants to comment on this application to give us a call at 518-761-8225. And I'm going to ask if there's anybody in the audience who would like to address the board on with respect to this particular project. And do we have any written correspondence?
Well, there was a petition signed that asked the neighbors to sign this form if they had no objection to the addition and improvements that were made to the property, and 14 people signed it. 14 neighbors signed this. That's all I got.
So we just got to wait for a couple minutes to give people on the outside time to call in. We got a lot of viewers tonight. Really?
They're all from my family.
They don't have any NBA games tonight, so maybe we'll pick up a few.
Were you able to connect the two buildings at all? You know, because you're gonna get some, with that being on piers like that, you're gonna get some shifting. That's the only problem with that. I hate to see that start cracking away.
Well, I got as far as I could. I put the elephant feet down in the 4x4s. I did have a leak in the roof where I attached it to the other, but Buildings and Code gave me permission to seal that up. That was it.
Right.
It's the only time I could touch it.
Because
As
the
far
only
as the
problem with
rest-
that being on piers, it's gonna shift differently than the rest of the,
Well, I plan on doing different when I get a, if I can get a permit.
if you only have that on the blocks.
Yeah.
So nobody's gotten a hold of us here, so I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to poll the board, and I'm going to start with Kathy.
Yes, I think it's a very minimal request, and I will vote in favor.
And Jim?
Yeah, if this was a new request before us, I think we would grant it with no questions asked.
Michelle?
I agree with my fellow board members, and I'm in favor of your project.
Ron, how do you feel?
I feel pretty good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is pre-existing non-conforming with the distance off the property line, and I think it's a minimal request there. So I agree with my other board members. I'm in favor.
And John?
Yeah, it's only one very small variance of 2.4 feet of relief, so I'd also be on board with this project too, as is.
Roy?
Yeah, this is a minimal request. I'd be in favor of it.
And I think it'll improve the property. I think you've done a nice job with the property, and I too approve the project. So at this particular time, I'm going to ask for a motion from Ron.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to recommend that we approve area variance AV 26-202-2020, John and Cynthia Randall. As per the document prepared by staff, we find that there is really not an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood nor detriment to nearby properties, as this is just a slight addition onto a pre-existing non-conforming structure. Feasible alternatives are limited, and plus it is a corner lot, and the existing building is the same distance off the property line. And all these alternatives have been considered by the board and are reasonable. and have been included to minimize the request. The requested variance is really not substantial, as it is just a small addition for a laundry room. There is not an adverse impact on the physical environmental conditions in the neighborhood or the district. The alleged difficulty may be considered self-created, but not really. In addition, the board finds that the benefit to the applicant for granting the requested variance would really outweigh the resulting detriment to health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood and community. The board also finds that the variance requested under consideration is really minimal. For that reason, I recommend we approve AV 26-2020.
So I have a motion, can I have a second?
I'll second that.
Call the vote, please.
Mrs. Hamlin?
Yes.
Mr. Henkel?
Yes.
Mrs. Hayward?
Yes.
Mr. Underwood?
Yes.
Mr. Yuriko?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhl?
Yes.
Mr. McCabe?
Yes. Now, the real challenge here is to see if you can clean the podium and microphone up.
Looks like it.
Are you going to give classes on that cleaning procedure, Mr. Chairman?
Well, I'm going to observe and
Okay,
perhaps.
thank you.
The other boards don't push it. If you watch the other board meetings, they don't push it.
Well, you know.
John, do you need any
Yeah, you might as well
of this
take these.
paperwork?
They were expensive. You better keep them.
No, I don't.
No, you don't want the, you don't want the
You
surveys?
may want them, because
I'll take them.
oh, okay.
Okay. There you go.
My only question would be, you approved it, do I have to wait a certain time for a building permit?
Oh, somebody will get a hold of you.
We'll talk tomorrow. I'll try to give you a call.
All right, thank you.
To get you started on that.
Yeah.
Good job. You can dispose of it right there?
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Good luck.
Okay, so our next application is area variance 22-2020, Lori Shope and Lynn McCoon.
The applicant requests relief from road frontage requirements for an existing subdivision, sub 5-1993M, parentheses 1996, for 2 lots. Lot 2 of 1.13 acres and requires 50 feet of road frontage where only 17.01 feet exist. There is no construction proposed at this time. The relief is requested for road frontage for section 179-4-050 road frontage. The existing parcel has 17.01 feet of road frontage where 50 feet is required. Access would be to Holly Lane. Looking at the criteria, this project may be considered to have an impact on the neighboring properties, as this would be a new driveway access to an existing road. The feasible alternatives may be limited due to the parcel being an existing lot and would require a variance to access through an adjoining lot. The relief may be considered moderate relevant to the code. Relief is for 32.99 feet. The project as proposed may be considered to have minimal to no impact on the environmental conditions of the site or area. And the project as proposed may be considered self-created. Staff comments, the applicant proposes to maintain the existing 17.01 feet of road frontage to have access to Holly Lane for Lot 2. The plans show the lot configuration and the existing buildings on the site. The applicant has indicated there is no site work proposed at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, ladies.
Just a second. If you want to grab a couple chairs there and sit down, feel free to do that.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Mike O'Connor from the law firm of Little O'Connor and Borey. I'm here representing Lori Ann Shope, S-H-O-P-E, and Lynn P. McCoon, that's M-A-C-C-O-U-N. Their family has owned this property, believe it or not, since 1899. It was conveyed to these 2 girls by their father, Robert Polk Jr. In the words of Craig Brown, this is a technical variance, and in my experience, it's like many of the variances that I have asked for around the lake or around the lakes. Because of the old road systems, they didn't have the width that the current code requires. In fact, this property has been approved in its configuration that we have by twice by the planning board. They got permission to subdivide it, and then they got permission to modify the subdivision by changing the angle of the line that separates lot 1 and 2. The variance won't change the character of the neighborhood or be a detriment to the nearby properties. This is a residential neighborhood, and we're not changing it. We're going to have residences on the property. We're going to have to go through site plan for the residents down the road, but it is going to be residential. It's not going to be anything but that. The existing road will not be changed in its width. We don't own property on either side of the road going up to the boundary line, so we don't have the ability or availability of doing something of that nature. The driveway that is going to run from the end of this road is going to be entirely on the property of the applicants. It's not going to be on somebody else's property. It's going to be on their property. It will be probably much shorter than the existing driveway that runs through the property, and it has a loop at the end of it. We figure it's approximately going to be 100 feet from that to where they're going to build the house. They actually are going to tear down the existing house on lot 2 and then build a new structure there. The benefit can't be obtained by any other method that's feasible to the applicant. There are 2 lots, each of which needs its own private entrance road. Applicant does not own or control any land that would allow it to widen the road as it attaches to the applicant's property. When you look at the math of the width of the road, you might think that this is a substantial variance. But if you actually look at the impacts, it is not. It impacts no one except themselves. They will have access to their own property. Their driveway will be on their own property. It won't really impact anyone else. You need to look beyond just the simple math. Was the difficulty self-created? I say no. The town planning board has approved this subdivision twice with the width of the road shown on the prior subdivision maps. And they approved it in 1996 and they approved it in 1993. And also, I went back to some records. This road was listed on the Donovan road inventory that was taken in the 1950s. And it was in the configuration that it's in now. It's the program that they have for the town to apply for and qualify for CHIPS money for repair of roads. This is a town road that runs up to that property. If anything, this was created when the town, and I don't know when, accepted that road as a town road. It's not something that the applicants created. I've got the Donovan plan listing here if you need it for your record. I think you've got in your record letters from Craig Brown saying that this was a variance because of the technicalities of the change of the road width requirements. So it really has little impact on anyone. The people that are purchasing this property think that their new home will be an improvement to the existing home that's on lot number 2 and an improvement to the neighborhood. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to try and answer them.
So you're saying when they split these into 2 lots, obviously it was 1 lot, at that time, there was no requirement of the width of the road? Because you just would have thought that would have been consideration.
If there was, it was ignored by the planning board on 2 different occasions.
Because you think they would have, that would have been one of the concerns if you're splitting the property and it has no access road, you think that would be, you know, now you're talking about land lot, you know, other than that easement road.
No, lot 1 has actual frontage on Assembly Point Road.
Oh, I realize that, I know.
And lot 2 from history has always been at the end of Polk Lane. So they had frontage on that. There's a question of the width of the frontage.
Other questions?
Yeah, do you talk about future development, Mr. O'Connor, that's going to happen, or?
I believe it is. I represent the sellers of the property,
Okay.
not the buyer, but his intention and everything that he's talked about, it's going forward. He's actually had some additional topographical survey done and other things, getting ready to find out what he needs for site plan.
Thank you.
But you're saying the sale won't go through without that approval of that road? Basically, that's what you're
Correct.
saying to us?
Yes, that is a condition, that was a condition of the sale.
I would have done the same thing if I was buying that lot, subject to, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other questions? Seeing none, public hearing has been advertised, and at this particular time, I'm going to open the public hearing and invite anybody who's watching on TV to give us a call at 518.
Mike, can you wipe down the mic, please?
You got away from me, sorry about
I
that.
apologize for
Yeah.
interrupting.
Mr. Chairman, stay on the job.
I was trying to give the people a heads up on the outside here.
Delegate
so-
that to Ron then.
I know.
You got enough to worry about.
So if you have comment on this particular project, give us a call at 518-761-8225. If there's anybody in the audience who would like to speak on this particular issue, we're going to invite you to come up in just a second here. So you'll go first?
Actually, it's a bunch of correspondence tonight from,
So first, we're going to have you state your name for the record.
Sure. My name is Brian Hogan. I own both the properties that are being sought for relief. And we lived on Holly Lane for about 20 years. My family's vacationed there for about 40 years prior to that. And we're intimately familiar with the area, obviously. I had the opportunity to read the application, and I noted that there's a bunch of things, to me anyway, look like inconsistencies, and I'd like to address each of those in turn. I have a document that I created relative to that, and I'd like to, you guys will have a copy of it.
So I'm going to ask that you, unless Roy, do you have said document?
No, these are all, all this correspondence was just signed off on everything today.
Okay, so make sure that Secretary has a copy first there.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully they don't run out.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So if I could, I'd like to go through the application point by point and the parts I don't actually understand. One of on item 1, which is on the document that you guys have, compliance with zoning ordinance document, item 1, indicates whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby property. The applicant states that the condition already exists. It was previously 2 tax lots from 1996 to 2009. We wish to put back the property to 2 tax lots that it was prior to 2009. See the filed map. It's actually, what I think is it's somewhat incorrect. The variance is for road frontage on the wooded southern border of the parcel in question. The condition does not already exist and would be a bit detriment to the residents of Holly Lane. The original subdivision or 2 lots has a right-of-way called Polk Drive, which is to the north. Any access to the Holly Lane was deliberately left out of the subdivision. The original subdivision request in 1993 and 1996 that was done by Mr. Polk purposely left out access to Holly Lane, and I can quote from that. He was represented by Mr. Affadoo at the time, a leach field area that maybe would present a problem for a driveway if it was extended to that town road, but at the present time, Mr. Polk has no intention of putting a driveway in that area. Mr. Polk further responds, my daughter and I daughters and I will have this property, or whatever it may be, for someone else. However, we will maintain this road as we have for 90 years. So I want to clear that up. And if as much as this property would change hands, these people do not want this easement here, they will come back to the planning board. So Mr. Polk had never had any intention of connecting to Holly Lane. So it was not included in the subdivision, which is kind of weird because most people, when they do a subdivision, always want to have access to it, to the closest road. In this particular case, he specifically left it out. It was asked several times during the planning board meeting if he wanted to include it, and he said no. Item 2, where it says this is the only option, it's a minimum variance. Polk Drive exists to serve both lots, which is approved, and use and access over it would pass to any subsequent purchaser. You cannot landlock a piece of property. So in other words, the existing road would pass to both users. And by the way, the application sort of states that that there might be more than one person buying this. The same person's buying both lots as far as I know. Item 4, whether proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical environmental conditions. The application says no, there'll be no change. Again, this seems to be incorrect. It's a matter of perception. The owners on Holly Lane do feel that this would have a significant impact on them. It's already difficult with the number of vehicles that traverse up and down that road, and no information has been provided by the applicant about the stated lack of impact. One of the other things that concerns me somewhat is that we're mixing and matching. This is something that the current owners are providing or requesting. And we're stating things in this meeting that the future owners are going to do something. It actually has no bearing on this. From my perspective, you have to look at it from the conditions on the ground as they currently exist, not as a possibility of what somebody might do in the future. Item 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. The application again says no. It was a circumstance created by the town when they approved Polk Drive at 17.1 feet. It's not Polk Drive, it's Holly Lane. And that's how they want to give access to it. So they have a current road called Polk Drive, which actually enters the property from Assembly Point Road. This would be a new access from Holly Lane. By definition, I would think that that would be self-created. The application, next document in the application has a general statement narrative. They're selling 2 lots, buyer 1, the 1.313 acre lot. This condition is purchased on being able to access said lot from Holly Lane. I've known the girls that are selling the property since high school. And they joined both the tax lots for tax purposes. They enjoyed significant tax savings over the years because of that. Now they wish to once again separate it into 2 parcels and add road access. The paragraph would say there seems to be 2 purchasers. In fact, there's just one, and he's a developer. Paragraph 4, existing condition that does not involve any construction on the subject lot, which has a single-family home. The purchaser intends to use the lot for the same purpose. There's no driveway or road in this location, but by definition require construction or any access to the subject lot, or as well by the town to complete the road. As you can see from the diagram, or the diagram you show up there, there's 34 feet of the road that's not completed and not paved. Has anybody ever been to the property and looked at it? The 34 feet in question there is actually part of my driveway. I cleared that, I put the gravel in, and I've actually maintained it for 20 years. The town doesn't do anything except pile snow on it. And paragraph 5 indicates that there be no change to the neighborhood, and considering the fact that the Holly Lane's a town road already and serves a single house residence, does not serve that house. We're adding additional vehicles, deliveries, and removing access for snow. Right now, the town piles all the snow at the end of that road. If you put a driveway at the end of that road, there'd be no place to put the snow. Paragraph 7, excuse me, where did I leave?
I'm going to have to, you're only supposed to have 3 minutes here, so can you wrap this up a little bit?
You know what, I do apologize for that. You have to understand, I've been asked to speak on behalf of everybody on Holly Lane, and some of the folks are older, and they've asked me to speak on their behalf. If I could get a little bit of indulgence, I'll try to move as quickly as I
yeah.
can. All right?
Because we have other cases tonight.
I understand, yes. Let's say paragraph 7, in case it has no impact. Holly Lane was originally created from a right-of-way based upon deeded access by all the properties on the lane. The applicant's subject property does not have any references right-of-way in their deed, and it is substantial to the residents of Holly Lane. No physical change. Any construction or use of Holly Lane will certainly cause change to both the physical and environmental conditions. And paragraph 90 states that obviously this condition was not self-created. Holly Lane, and it mentions that it's on the 1950 Donovan Road inventory. Holly Lane, or any derivation of Holly Lane, or Brayton Lane North, is nowhere listed on the New York State local highway inventory. As Mr. O'Connor mentioned, that's the funding for CHIPS. And if you go and look at that document, the current one as of 2019 has no reference whatsoever to Holly Lane. The applicant, in case the hardship is not self-created, I think we've already demonstrated that it is self-created. The last thing I'd like to go over, and one of the things that's most important to me, is the errors in the current subdivision. If you look at the subdivision map, in the southern border on the right-hand side, you'll see where my house is listed as having no access from, no well that I get my water from the lake. That's correct. On the other side, you'll see the camp I own on the other side of the road. That shows the camp and a well location. According to that survey, those two items, that camp and that well, are 150 feet from the property line. That's incorrect. The camp is actually about 44 feet from the property line, and making the well considerably closer. If you look at my survey, which is accurate, and I can assure you the building and the well has not moved. At 150 feet, my camp and that well would bisect my southern property. That is not the case. The survey is an error, and one of the concerns that I have associated with that is the fact that my well is so much closer, it actually bisects the leach field for the two properties that are the two camps. The other part of that always concerns me in these things is that the things are always piecemeal. You know, we do one variance, we get that approved. You know, basically at the end of this variance, they could build a driveway if they want. The planning board never looked at any of it because they didn't have the ability to. If somebody says, we're not building the road, we don't want it, we don't want access, of course the planning board's not going to look at it. In any case, I think that this is a piecemeal approach, and it doesn't benefit anybody to do that. I'm not saying that they can't do what they want to do. That's not my intent here. What I'd like to see it have done is have it done right. I'd like to see the town board adopt Holly Lane as an official road, get it on that CHIPS list, as Mr. O'Connor pointed out. I'd like a submission to the planning board done, so the applicant can update the subdivision to show that they do want road access now, not change that from not wanting road access as it was done back in 1996. At that time, we can all look at the due diligence associated with the construction of the road, what's required, do we need a turnaround, where's the snow gonna go, all of that kind of stuff. And once the planning board looks at that, then hey, then they come back and ask for the variances associated with that. I think this benefits everyone.
So procedurally, you have it just the opposite way around. The owners have to approach us for a variance before they can approach the planning board. That's the way
Does that
the
just,
town
it
does
doesn't go, when I had to do it, I had to go to the planning board first.
When you get to be king, you can do that.
I guess I can do that. I have a couple of other pieces of correspondence here.
Make sure that Roy gets them.
This piece of correspondence this is a letter that was signed by almost everyone on Holly Lane that is affected by this.
Now, is this essentially what you just gave us?
This is different.
No,
This is different. Can you, you mentioned you're speaking for other people. Can you mention who those people are?
Sure.
He's got a list right here.
The list.
Well, that's on this one here. I'm talking about what he just presented. He said he was speaking for other people.
Oh, well, Lynn is actually wrote her own stuff. I was speaking for her, but she actually has this letter. I think you're gonna have to read this one because it's sealed.
Good.
Laura, can you tell us anything about that road? What's the truth
road
on that?
itself?
Well, we're gonna bring Mike back, and he's gonna have a chance to.
Laura, being a staff member, would know maybe more about that.
The road is, I guess I don't. the
So
road
are you all done?
is.
Oh, yeah, I need to clean.
So I need to have you wipe down the podium
Sure.
and the microphone.
I-
He's saying that it's really a adopted road, but yeah.
it's-
This is
I guess
the
it's
Queensbury
irrelevant.
ZBA.
The
Yes,
request is the request.
I
for-
very much opposed to this extension of Holly Lane. And
First of all, you need to state your name for the record here.
I'll call back, I guess, when they're asking if anybody else is, I'd like to hear what's going on first, so I don't repeat. I'll call back, I guess, when they're asking if anybody else is.
Okay, because we do have another person that's going to speak on this. So you want to call back? So you would like to go next?
Florence Connor, 6 Holly Lane, Lake George, New York. I'm going to read mine so that I don't get confused,
Sure.
and then I'll give you the copy. First of all, these are the owners that are asking for this, and they say no construction is expected from them. So I want to just make that. I am in opposition to this, first of all. If you made an on-site visit to this property, and if you, the people that are here, are familiar with Assembly Point, you will know how unique this property is. It's possibly the only natural shoreline still existing on the point. Therefore, you can see the significance of refusing this variance request. The property is for sale. You know that. The variance comes to you from the owners, however, without a doubt requested by the individual wishing to purchase the property. It seems like a small request until one realizes why this variance is requested. This request opens the door to something much bigger than the end of a road or a driveway. If you consider this variance requesting reduced road frontage, think beyond the 17+ feet. If accepted, the driveway becomes open to the potential buyer who, once he buys it, must develop it to be worth more than $2 million he will have paid to purchase it. That's a given. I ask you to imagine this property. Have you seen the property? And if you have, imagine it. Stripped clean with only lakeshore buffers surrounding a multi-million-dollar structure.
Can I ask you to hold up for just a second here? This is the Queensbury Zoning Board of Appeal. Hello? Sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Compare the picture to the property as we see it today. A natural waterfront with a cottage that's over 100 years old and still in use today. If frontage is forgiven, building will begin. First, there will be demolition. Then there will be multiple requirements involving setbacks and so on. There'll be more, probably multiple requests for further variances. In order to build and landscape a multi-million-dollar estate necessary to make a sizable profit from the purchase of $2 million plus of this once natural spot of land, the only thing protecting this parcel from complete transformation today is for Queensbury Board of Zoning Appeals, that's you, to deny a variance, requesting less frontage. There are reasons Queensbury requires specific frontage. Today, that reason becomes obvious. This property is valuable. It will sell. There is access to it without a variance. It's unique and it's desirable. Queensbury has been setting an example of a town that respects Lake George, septic transfer, reduced salt, modern plows, boat washing. We in Queensbury, and I've been here a long time, have been saying enough is enough. This variance is one more spot where Queensbury, that's you, can again say, no, enough is enough. This is one more step we should take to protect what is most valued, the lake and the property that surrounds it. I ask you to deny this variance for that reason. Thank you.
Thank you. So whoever's calling in from the outside, just a second. If you have input, we'll take it right now. This is the Queensbury Zoning Board of Appeals.
Yes, Susan O'Hanlon calling. I'd like to talk on this.
Sure.
This is the Queensbury Zoning Board of Appeals. Yes, Susan O'Hanlon.
Yes.
I'm at 12 Holly Lane.
Yes.
I'll tell you, there has been a significant impact already to the residents on Holly Lane. I had a hard time sleeping last night. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
This variance is unnecessary, in my opinion. There's a private road that gives access to both of these lots, which apparently are being purchased by the same party.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I should turn off the sound so I don't have an echo. Okay. My apologies on that. I feel that the variance in request is going to impact, as my neighbor that just spoke has talked about. This is a pristine piece of land that has been in existence for many years with a private road that has given it access, which makes it very unique and very desirable. It also is not necessary to connect to 12 Holly Lane unless they want to bring huge trucks in here for construction, which will impact all of the residents on Holly Lane. We have had a private dead-end road here for many, many years. I've been here since 1968. My husband before me, even longer, who is deceased. We have an impact as it is with garbage trucks and those kinds of vehicles already come through here. I cannot imagine what would happen if we have all this construction taking place with the building of the home. 2 homes, from what I understand, will be the future plan for this developer. We on Holly Lane have to cross this road all the time to get to our residence from our garage or wherever we park. This is unusual. This is not like the main Assembly Point Road where they only access across the road and have to cross it to get to their dock. We have to use this road constantly to walk across, to bring groceries, to mow the lawns, to back and forth continually, and there is foot traffic consistently back and forth on this Holly Lane Road. It is already busy enough. We don't need construction people coming through here for who knows how long. I know other homes in this area took 2 to 3 years to build the mansions that they seem to be putting on the lake now when they tear these old beautiful places down. That's all I really want to say, other than my neighbors at the end of the road, the Hogans, who first spoke, have a beautiful piece of property. They bought that property, and my understanding is the beauty of it was at the very end of a private road. Their home, one of the 2 homes that they own, is very close to the road. I can't imagine what impact that would have on them when trucks and so forth come through here, and people that aren't familiar with how important it is to go very slowly. And this does happen with guests of people. We have to remind our guests, please drive very, very slowly. This would be a huge impact on everyone on Holly Lane, and I am very much opposed.
Okay, thank you very much for your input. Okay?
Thank you. My name is William Kroll. I reside at 20 Holly Lane. I have a couple comments on this application. First, it's not very transparent. The first I've heard anything about what is going to happen here was, I think Mr. O'Connor said they were planning a 100-foot driveway. There's nothing in the application to indicate that. I mean, when I look
Also,
at...
that's not what we're passing judgment on.
Well, but my point is, as a resident of Holly Lane, I'd like to know what we're passing judgment on. I'd like to know, is it going to be 100 feet? Are they going to connect it to the existing right-of-way, Polk Drive? Or are we going to have not just one residence, but 2 additional residents using Holly Lane? There's no description here. We don't know that. You don't know that at this point. That's my problem. One of the problems with this, there's no transparency. There's no clarity. As Mr. Hogan said, what we have here is fragmentation. You're going to provide this variance, if you do, tonight. That opens up a whole flow of other variances and other actions, none of which we have any control over or understanding of what's going to happen. So I think that gives a lot of people on Holly Lane concern. This is an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood, and it also has an adverse impact on the environment and the physical conditions. As has been noted, it's a dead-end street. When you bought, you were buying into a dead-end street. It has a beautiful forest there. You're eliminating a part of a view shed. You're going to have a lot of trees that are going to have to come down if you're going to put in this driveway. And in addition to which, since the road, Holly Lane, ends, and you can see it on the map, the line, there's about 34 feet, I think somebody said 32.3, whatever. But there's a significant piece of the lane that is not maintained. It's on the map, but there's no pavement. So what's going to happen to that? Is there going to be a situation where you're going to have impervious surfaces added to the existing property? And what impact is that going to have in stormwater? We don't know. You don't know, are they going to put, what they're going to put down? Or are they just going to put stone? We have no idea. This is a pig in a poke. Congestion is a real problem on Holly Lane. We have 15 residences and 3 lots that can be made into residences at some point. It's effectively, it says 17.1 in the description. That's 17.1 as you enter. It narrows. It goes to 13 feet, and at the end of the road, it's about 11 plus a few inches. As was mentioned by Mr. Hogan, it is not on the list of roads in New York State. Local road listing for Queensbury as published by the New York State Department of Transportation. Holly Lane is not on it. It can't be on it because it's too narrow, and to be on it, you need to be an accepted road. Maybe at one point they were accepted, I don't know, but I'm thinking at this point that this road is a road that the only obligation that the town has is it's a use road. So they maintain it as little as possible. I've never seen, in the 19 years that I've lived there, I've never seen anything but a snow plow. So we have a situation also where there's, as,
Okay.
all right, I'll hurry up.
You guys have had a lot of time here. You're going over many of the same things as the other.
Well, I'm not going to go. I have a few more things to say. So as far as public safety goes, there's an issue there too. You're now having emergency vehicles go down a much narrower road that has to first take a right on Brayton, take left on Holly. It's a narrow road, as opposed to right now they have direct access off Assembly Point Road, which is 17.1 feet. And there was, in the initial application to the planning board, a letter from the fire department saying that this was fine, it was great access. I think also quickly again, we have congestion problems, the garbage, the snowplow, delivery trucks, landscapers. You have situations where the garbage trucks have to back up down Holly Lane. You're only exacerbating that situation. We have a situation also where we have rental properties on Holly Lane. My next door neighbor rents his property for a good portion of the year. For several weekends, there's 8 cars there. He's got 5 bedrooms, so he can have 8 cars there. You're creating a difficult situation. As I also said, it's not paved up to the Polk property. So what's going to happen? Is the town going to enter into an agreement to maintain that? Are they going to pave it? We have no idea. You're going to give them access and we don't know what's going to happen? There's some stone there, but where's the snow going to go? And the road construction that has to be undertaken, there's also, in the town law, a requirement that there be a turnaround. Local law 183-27 LIA basically says you need a turnaround. It has a whole listing of it. Is that going to happen? Are you going to provide this variance tonight without even knowing, are we going to get a turnaround? So that we're not going to have these...
Let me explain what's going on here. Is you're confusing our function with the planning board. There's 2 separate groups involved here. There's the zoning board, which this variance has approached us, and there's the planning board, who is basically in charge of all the other things that you're talking about here. So we appreciate that you're concerned with congestion here, but the forum is not what you're looking for.
Well, I disagree with you because one of the things that you have to consider is the character of the neighborhood and the adverse consequences. And that's an adverse consequence.
So
you may not be able to make that judgment.
All of the things that you're talking about are speculative if somebody builds on this property. We aren't here to pass judgment on that. That's later function. All we're here for is to say, instead of a 50-foot frontage, is a 17-foot frontage, 17 and a
So
half.
let me ask you a question. You can, this board has the ability to put a condition on any variance. So why can't you put a condition on the variance that the road to the, before it can be exercised, that the road has to be completed? That there has to be a turnaround? That's within your power.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Yeah.
And I want to say one more thing. This may be a
Excuse me,
technical
just a second
variance to
here.
somebody, but it's not to the people on Holly Lane.
Can you?
This is the Queensbury Zoning Board of Appeal.
Oh, thanks.
Didn't you call in earlier? All right, hold on a second. All right, state your name again for the record.
This is Susan O'Hanlon calling back on 12 Holly Lane. I invite the board, before they make any decision tonight, strongly to go on Holly Lane and send some official people there and look at the situation at the end of this road. Look at the woods that it's going to impact and the beauty of having a separation of woods between this property and at the end of Polk and the Hogan residence and all of the residents on Holly Lane. I'd like you to look at the impact it's going to have on the property that the Hogans own, in particular their landscaping, the closeness to the home where vehicles are going to drive. No one ever drives by their property because it's at the end. And they have beautified the property to the point where it would just, they would be devastated by this. This will impact them. It will impact us in terms of traffic. And I ask that you please do not make a decision tonight, but please come and look at this property. Look at what we're talking about. Don't just blindly vote on this tonight. I would be devastated if this passed tonight, and so would everyone else on this lane. This needs very careful consideration, and I beg you to please do the right thing by us. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else that wants to speak on this matter?
Well, Mr. Jericho, I believe, has a letter from Lynn Dogger. I'd like to have that read.
Sure. Go ahead.
These comments are submitted on the above referenced application by the undersigned individual. The purpose of the Shope-McCoon variance application is to enable prospective purchaser of the Polk property to newly establish access to Holly Lane for purposes of egress and ingress. The Polk property consists of 2 lots with 3 residential buildings which are currently used on a seasonal basis. The Polk property is served by Polk Drive, a private road which exits directly onto Assembly Point Road. Holly Lane is not listed on the New York State roads listing to Queensbury as published by the New York State Department of Transportation. The width of Holly Lane ranges from approximately 11 feet 3 inches to 13 feet wide. It is at its narrowest at the dead end. The Local Highway Inventory Manual 2018, published by the New York State Department of Transportation, states that the minimum width to be considered a 2-lane road is 16 feet. Roadways less than 16 feet is through travel lane width are counted as 1-lane roads regardless of whether 2-way traffic is permitted. Holly Lane has access to Assembly Point Road through Brayton Lane. The variance would result in additional traffic on Holly Lane as well as Brayton Lane. In contrast to Holly Lane, Polk Drive has a width of approximately 17 feet and has direct access to Assembly Point Road. The Polk property has been used for seasonal rentals, and as a consequence, there are a number of cars that use the 3 residential buildings on the Polk property. From a public safety perspective, there is more room for emergency vehicles to access the Polk property using Polk Drive rather than Holly Lane. At present, Holly Lane has challenges with respect to garbage trucks, landscape trucks, and larger delivery vehicles. These vehicles almost exclusively back out of Holly Lane because they are unable to turn around. As a narrow one-lane road, there should be a higher bar to newly established access to the Polk property, particularly when there is currently an adequate private road providing access to the main access road for Assembly Point, which has been used as such for decades. The application for this variance indicates that there is no project work needed and no land disturbance required in the connection with this variance. Due to the applicant's adoption of this unsupported position, the application does not disclose details related to design details of ingress, egress, loading areas and cutting, existing and proposed and location, design and construction details of all existing and proposed site improvements, including drains and culverts. Nor does the application note that in order to obtain access from the Polk property to Holly Lane, multiple mature trees have to be removed, as well as removal of a water pump station and possibly transversal of a leach field. And the attached are photos of the area showing the trees and the pump station. The lack of information and detail in the application about the project is highlighted further by the applicant's waiver request with respect to landscaping and stormwater management requirements. The waiver request should not be granted. Construction necessary to accomplish this project should be detailed by the applicant and the town to determine what, if any, issues may arise as a consequence of the construction required. There will certainly be a disturbance on the Polk property and the neighboring properties if a variance is granted. The site is in critical area as designated by the Lake George Park Commission. An evaluation should be undertaken by the applicants so that a determination can be made as to whether the project requires a major stormwater plan. In considering the application, it is also important to note that Holly Lane itself is not paved up to the Polk property line. The paved portion of the Holly Lane ends approximately 34 feet from the Polk property line. The unpaved area between the end of Holly Lane and the Polk property is not being used for public travel, nor is it maintained by the town. The unpaved area is used as part of a driveway by a neighboring property, and such area has been openly maintained by the neighbor since 2001 and earlier by prior owners of the property. If it is demonstrated that the town has ownership of the unpaved area, road construction would have to be undertaken to extend Holly Lane to the Polk property, and there would be significant cost to the town to undertake the work. Holly Lane is a dead-end street. Local law A.183-27 IA provides that dead-end streets shall not be longer than 1,000 feet and shall be provided with a turnaround at the closed end, having a street right-of-way diameter of at least 140 feet and outside edge of pavement diameter at least 110 feet. An additional road construction would be required to extend Holly Lane. The street design requirement for the town should be applicable. The additional property for the turnaround should be provided by the applicant requesting the variance. The construction issues, including addition of a turnaround, should be part of the application so that residents of Holly Lane are aware of all the implications involved in the granting of the variance. In addition to failing to provide adequate information related to the variance, the application before the zoning board also does not detail what is intended to be done in terms of the existing Polk Drive, nor the further development of the Polk property envisioned by the prospective purchaser. The applicant seeks approval of an area variance without disclosing the construction activities flowing from the grant of the variance. The piecemeal approach in terms of application to the zoning board does not provide either the zoning board or the residents of Holly Lane with any transparency about the plans for the property. Segmentation of projects, as the application seeks to accomplish, is prohibited by the State Environmental Quality Review Act. An environmental review of the various construction activities activated by the variance should be reviewed together with a consideration of the variance. Construction activities cannot be treated as unrelated activities needing individual determinations of significance. The applicant asserts there is no option but a variance. The assertion does not accord with the fact that Polk Drive is an option for access to Assembly Point Road. Not only does Polk Drive have more direct access, it is wider than Holly Lane and more accessible for emergency vehicles. The variance is substantial since it requires construction by both the applicant and potentially the town of Queensbury, depending upon the ownership of the unpaved area abutting the Polk property. There are impacts on the neighborhood since the variance would result in additional traffic on a very narrow one-lane road, as well as Brayton Lane. There are environmental concerns resulting from the construction, which are not known since no plans are available. The alleged difficulty from which this variance seeks relief was clearly self-created. The variance was provided to the owner when the subdivision was created in 1993, and the owner did not implement the variance and specifically requested the planning board to ignore the variance or provide any access to Holly Lane in the subdivision approval. There are a number of significant unanswered questions arising from this application, which should result in denial of the subject variance. And this is signed by 16 people.
Mr. Yurko, I apologize. The sealed letter from Lynn Goddard, she'd kill me if you didn't read her.
I'm going to read that too.
Okay, thank you.
I have been a year-round resident of Holly Brayton Lane for 48 years. Previously, I spent summers on Holly Lane for 20 years. I felt comfortable raising 3 children in a safe environment. I am deeply concerned with the Shope-McCoon variance application. As it is now, large commercial vehicles have difficulty maneuvering Holly Lane. I am worried about increased traffic and the safety of my grandchildren. I cannot see the need for an additional access to the road properly when a road currently exists. Please consider keeping Holly Lane safe for our families. And this is Lynn Gouger, and she lives on the corner of Holly and Brayton. She also signed the other letter too, by the way.
Thank you.
So just to say, is there anybody else that's going to provide input here? So would you like to comment?
I'd like to comment. First, let me submit a copy of page 17, which I got from the town's records, that says Holly Lane changed from Brayton Road north off Brayton Lane to dead end. And it's got a T next to it, which indicates that it's a town road. On this list, there happens to be Hicks Road, which has a C, which means it's a county road. I'll submit that for the record, that this is a town road that we're talking about. I don't know.
Really good set.
But it's obviously not completed all the way to the property line.
I don't know if it's paved or not, but I will stipulate on behalf of the applicant that if you want to condition your action on this thing, we're open to conditions. And from what I heard, most of the comments have to do with what we're going to present in site plan, not part of the variance application. But I will, ahead of that application, or I will say, I believe this application must go, if they have any construction, it must go for site plan to the planning board. I will stipulate that it will go to the planning board for site plan review to handle any of the questions that they raise. And ahead of going there, I will stipulate that the applicant will pave that 34 feet or whatever it is to the same condition of the existing road. And the applicant will, and I'm probably stretching a little bit, provide a area on his parcel for a turnaround or for a dumping of snow, so that there is not a problem created for either of those two issues which was raised by some of the speakers. We're not changing the existing road. All we're doing is saying that we're going to use that road for a single-family home, which I think the record shows that a single-family home probably produces 2 to 3 trips a day. So I don't think we're going to create a lot of congestion or add to, if there is existing congestion, we're not going to add to it. Perhaps if we do a turnaround and it will actually help them as far as congestion, because there are people that are going down Howie Lane can go down, turn around and go back out simpler than what they do now. I don't know if they back out or how they come back out. It is a narrow road. As far as construction goes, I will also stipulate that Howie Lane will not be used for construction on Lot 1. We can come off Assembly Point Road onto Lot 2 for construction purposes. But I think you would see, and you see the map that's up there, no one who is going to buy this piece of property and build a house that they're going to build, the type house they're going to build, wants to have driveways of other people running through their property. So that's the real reason that we're trying to separate them, and the reason that the potential buyer has conditioned his willingness to purchase this property on the fact that he be able to use Howie Lane to access lot number 1. I think that's a reasonable request.
Lot 2,
Or
to access lot 2.
No, I think lot 1. The point lot.
Right, which is 2.
You're correct. Okay. In fact, I'll tell you that part of what they have discussed is that the cottages on lot 1 are going to be removed. They're rental cottages, so there'll be even less people on that property than before. As far as tree cutting and whatnot, that's site plan. We're going to have to come in here with a landscape plan. We've asked for a waiver, but it's up to the planning board whether or not we get the waiver. I don't imagine we're going to get the waiver with the interest that's been shown. So we'll have to have a landscape plan as well as a stormwater management plan. We will be replacing the existing septic systems that are on the lot 1 and on lot 2, which are very old septic systems. That will be an improvement to the environment, not a detriment to the environment. If you have other suggestions that you think are necessary, we'd be glad to say whether or not we can stipulate to those suggestions. But I think the main one is, and somebody raised the question of construction traffic using Howie Lane, I can stipulate that that will not be the case. The other thing which we talked about is that there is no hydrant on the property right now. And we would stipulate that as part of the site plan that our applicant would install a dry hydrant like other people have on lake frontage, so that there is fire protection at the far end of the point and for the people on Howie Lane. Right now, I don't know how close they have any hydrant, so that should be a benefit to the neighborhood and environmental improvement as far as safety goes. I think that's it, basically, other than to say the questions that were raised are going to be addressed at site plan. We intend to be cooperative. We intend to mitigate anything that was potentially an impact on people. As I indicated, we will fix the end of the road. We'll do a turnaround on applicant's property. We will limit construction traffic, and we will install a dry hydrant. I don't know what else we can do. Everybody, I know nobody likes to see change. And this is, as I said, this property's been in the Polk family since 1899. So people have enjoyed the property as being very little used. I have no other, if I haven't answered your questions, or if you've got new questions based upon comments, I'd be glad to answer.
Excuse me just a second. This is the Queensbury Zoning Board of Appeals. Hello?
Hamlin calling back. I would just like to add that the same person owns lot 1 and lot 2 if they purchase this. I would just like to add that therefore The impact, if they use Polk Lane from now on, from here to the future, if they actually have two owners in Lot 1 and Lot 2, and they're going to build a home on each one, from what I understand, that the impact would only be that they would need to stipulate an easement for Lot 1 person to allow Lot 2 to have access to their property and keep this a pristine, private little point. It would also allow Holly Lane to remain a dead end where it is, with woods in between, which would be environmentally more, would be a less impact on the environment and on the aesthetics and on the owners at the end of the point, which will now have traffic going by their home. So number one, do you want to have an impact on everyone that lives on Holly Lane?
Ma'am.
Or do you want to have an easement that would allow someone to drive by the other home to get to Lot 2 from Lot 1? Which one is going to have less of an impact? That's all I have to say. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak 3 times tonight. I apologize for continuing to call in, but this is a very important to all of us on Holly Lane, and I know I speak for other people in this regard, and I just want to thank the board for please consider how many people are being impacted by your decision versus having an easement that simply can be a stipulation of a future sale. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I can address that in part. As I indicated, well, I didn't indicate maybe, but this is a sale, and my understanding of the individual that's purchasing it is going to be his personal residence that's on the point. He intends to, in fact, finance part of the purchase by selling the other parcel, the other lot, to maybe a family member or to someone else. And that's what allows us to go forward with this particular transaction. I think you understand people have a reluctance to have a road run through the middle of their property that serves another piece of property. I mean, the people in the audience are complaining about a public road that doesn't run through their property, but was a public road and is a public road. So what would you do if you had a private road running through your property that you didn't have control over? It's as simple as that. I don't think it's an, I don't think it's a,
Excuse me.
I don't think
We'll get to you later.
an unreasonable request. It's not a substantial request. And it really, any of the questions that were raised about the environmental impact or whatever, I think are addressed at site plan. And I think my stipulations actually answer most of those questions. In fact, they go beyond answering those questions. They make an offer that will impact the property of the applicant by setting aside an area for finishing the road and then setting aside an area for a turnaround for vehicles that are going to come down Howie Lane. I don't have...
So would you wait down here?
Yep. I might get good at this before we...
Yeah. So far, Lapper's a little bit better than you.
Wiping it down. Or being shorter. You can tell by where it's wet, right?
Okay, sir, would you like to come forward then?
Oh, you kept the public hearing open?
I haven't closed the public hearing yet.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Chris Abley. I'm the applicant, the developer, you know, the who name it, okay? So I would like to start with, the owners are not here tonight, obviously. And I didn't hear anybody say the impact to them financially. They've owned this property for, as Mike said, over 100 years. What rights do these people have? And as far as, look, I'm a developer, long-standing developer, excellent reputation, but I do intend to build my own home here. So I would prefer to be called eventually a neighbor. Now, the people that spoke here tonight are good people. They have legitimate concerns. And my intent is to be a good neighbor. And we're all adults here tonight. When you negotiate with something, you look at it, you evaluate it, and we came to an agreement, an offer. This is under contract. I made a decision that if I could get 2 lots with separate access points to each lot, it would be worth the purchase price. But to put the type of home I intend to do and to conform with every regulation that the town of Queensbury requires, I do not want to have to give an easement or give an easement to another lot I own to get to this property. It does not make sense to me, and it would not be fair to me to present the offer that I did based on that. But as we all know, it's a very rigorous process, and the town of Queensbury is difficult to deal with, but at least they let you know, they let you know what the rules are, and you try like heck to comply with them. So I want to be a good neighbor. I want to do a good job. And, this deal is dependent on this thing going through. And all the things that Mike did say, I do not want to impact the neighbors adversely. I would agree not to do construction traffic through, Holly Lane. I would put a dry fire hydrant there, which, by the way, would help the neighbors. And what was the other thing, Mike? Oh, I would do the turnaround for the snowplow. And the other thing I want to say is to stick up for the owners that are not here. They own that property for 100+ years. And it seems like other people are controlling their financial future. I think it's unfair. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. O'Connell, do you have anything else?
Not unless the board has a question that they think I should answer. Go ahead.
Well, let's, at this particular time, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to poll the board, and I'm going to start with Ron.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. This is a very interesting project, and what people talk about, it's kind of like, doesn't everybody want some natural land down the end of the road? They should have that. The property itself, if it was like lot 41 or 55 or 54, a small one, I could see a lot of the, it's a small lot, and this property is larger than all of these lots in this subdivision. And for me, if the people were so worried about a turnaround, why didn't lot 56 and 37 donate some property for a turnaround? Now here the applicant is saying he's gonna take some of the property away from his own personal use to satisfy what the neighbors should have worked on years ago. And also they talk about 13-foot of Holly Lane width. Well, maybe it's grown in over the years. I don't know. 16-foot versus 13-foot. And as far as the concern of one of the speakers about the tree cutting, the APA's got rules and regulations about that. And if this applicant, and we're not talking about the house he's building or what he's disturbing, to me sounds like he wants to be a good neighbor. And for that, I'm saying good for him. personally, having come into an area and required variances to build what I built for my family, it's, you're not going to stop progress. And as I started out with this piece of property is larger than any of them there. So I myself, I hear them, I understand it. I've got that. But this is not a bad presentation, the way it is. And for me, if we want to put a stipulation that there can only be one house, that would be fine. But for me, I'm in favor of this the way it's presented. I hear all the people, I really do. And I understand what they're saying, but this is not a little lot. The concern about construction, that's a short-term thing. And again, if this applicant says that he's going to listen to that and he's going to take care of that, how can you not be in favor of it? So I would be in favor of the way it's presented.
John? Yeah, this is definitely a tough one. I mean, we should consider the neighbors, there's no doubt. But like Ron said, it's just one piece of property. It's a large piece of property. If they're willing to do those conditions with a dry fire hydrant, that's a plus for the whole neighborhood with insurance reasons. If they're willing to put a turnaround on that property, I think that's a good thing for everybody. And there's no doubt on Lake George, Glen Lake, there's a lot of camps that have to go through other people's property to get to them with easements. There's a lot of easements. So it's something that could still be done. But I do agree with Ron. I think it's a variance we probably should grant, so.
Roy?
Now, I'm going to say right up front, I'm against the application. I think we're talking about a variance of 32.99 feet when we're talking about an existing parcel. 17 feet of road frontage where 50 is required. That's the variance that we're talking about. All the other stuff is related to that and has an impact on it. But that's the variance. We're trying to focus on the variance that we have before us tonight. I think the project is going to have an impact on the neighbors, the neighborhood. There's a potential to change the neighborhood in some way. There are feasible alternatives, and I think the request is substantial, so I would be against it.
Kathy?
As you stated, our purview is merely to grant the variance for the road frontage. It is not to do site plan review here. Undoubtedly, I'm sure all these people will show up to the planning board when it does come before that. I do think it's a significant amount of road frontage that we're granting a variance on. They're asking for nearly 2/3 variance, but it's adequate to satisfy state regulations in terms of access, and we should not be creating lots that a buildable lot must have a direct access on either an approved road or an existing road. And I don't know quite how the town, maybe Laura can answer this, addresses easements on property, but an easement, according to state regulation, does not necessarily provide that. To satisfy town law 288 specifically, it does not satisfy that. So I think that I would have to vote to approve this variance.
Jim?
This is a significant request here, but at the same time, it's an insignificant request because we also have to recognize the fact that this is a large lot at the end of the road. I think that it could be ironed out with the neighbors, and it could be a win-win situation for everybody here involved if we put stipulations involving the construction of the new home out on the point there. And that would be this. We recognize that all the other people that access off Holly Lane currently use the access, and it's adequate with the width of that road for those accessing those other 15 properties along there. At the same time, it's understandable why nobody wants to listen to construction vehicles moving back and forth during the construction of the home on that point. So I would be in agreement that we would grant the variance, but only after the fact, and that would be after construction of the home. All access while the construction of that home occurs out on the end of the point there would have to occur off of Assembly Point Road. And when completed, then the new access could be created off of Holly Lane. That's the only way I would look at approving it.
Michelle?
I'm not in favor of this application. To my mind, would create an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood with increased traffic. Who knows how many cars would be coming and going. Could be a rental someday. You know, the variance runs with the land, so we don't know what's going to happen with the property over the years. I do believe an alternative exists. It's not a very good alternative, but there is a road already there. The easement exists, and I'm not sure about the legalities of that. That could be ironed out. So for those two primary reasons, I'm not in favor. And I think it's significant. I feel. Thank you.
So I'd like to point out that all we're approving here is whether 17.1 feet is an acceptable frontage for the lot. We're in no means making a statement about the quality of the project or anything else involved with the project. That's up to the planning board. We've particularly in this area, we've approved less than the required frontage for a lot, and so I will approve this project with the stipulations that Jim has requested for approving the variance. So at this particular time, I did close the public hearing, right?
Yeah,
So at this particular time, Jim, I'm going to ask for a motion.
So prior to you making your motion, can you just go over the conditions again so that we're all
So
on the
Jim-
same page? And I understand Jim's first condition, but the applicant also indicated that they would place a turnaround
A turnaround and a dry hydrant.
on the dry hydrant.
We have the applicant come back up and clarify my.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if you can do what you said, you're saying, grant the variance after construction is completed. I would just as soon, I think it's clearer and more enforceable if you simply say you grant the variance on the basis that Holly Lane will not be used for construction purposes on the point lot.
Correct.
Okay, if that's what you're intending, I think that's a better way of saying it than trying to do two phases or two steps. So I don't, and the applicant is willing to stipulate to that. Okay, so we would stipulate that we would do a turnaround area. We'll pave that into that road. We would do a dry hydrant. I think that's it.
And a turnaround.
Turnaround.
And I thought it said turnaround. Turnaround
So I'm going to ask.
on our property.
Right, so I'm going to ask a couple of questions in reference to the turnaround. And your updated final plans, you would indicate the size of that turnaround?
Yes.
And then in reference to finishing the road, it would be
To town.
in cooperation with the town's requirements?
To town specs.
Okay.
So Jim, would you make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve area variance 22-2020 at 10 Polk Drive. It's Larry Ann Shope and Lynn P. McComb. Having listened to the application, the board will be will be granting a variance for relief of road frontage in the waterfront residential zone. The existing parcel has 17 feet of road frontage where 50 feet is required, and access would be to Holly Lane. In addition, the applicant has agreed to create a turnaround as well as a dry hydrant at that point.
You can put those conditions at the end of the resolution, so if you go through, sorry to interrupt you.
As far as an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to the nearby properties, We note that the road is 17 feet wide down the length of Holly Lane, and that we do not associate that adding one additional dwelling at the end of that point will create that much of a big difference. As far as feasible alternatives, they have been considered by the board, and that would have been the access off of Assembly Point Road, but that would be crossing on a right-of-way over Lot 1. And that's been deemed undesirable. As far as the requested variance being substantial, it is substantial because of the road width requirements by the town of Queensbury, but at the same time, it's the same as the road width requirement currently existing on Holly Lane. As far as adverse impacts on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district, we do not note that the addition of one additional person at the end of the road will create that much of a difficulty for this neighborhood of 15 people currently. As far as the difficulty being self-created, it's created by the fact that the road was created at the current width many years ago, back in the early subdivision days, granted in 1993 and 1996. In addition, the board finds the benefit to the applicant from the granting of the requested variance outweighs any detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or the community. Under the special conditions agreed upon by the applicant, all construction will take place via the Assembly Point Road and will not take place over Holly Lane during construction or reconstruction on the point. That will be properly reviewed by the planning board in the future. Added in at that point too. Based upon the findings, I make a motion to.
Well,
We have to
we're
add
gonna
the
add
drive-
the other ones, the
the
turnaround, the
turnaround.
dry hydrant, and the paving.
Okay, they agreed to provide a dry hydrant, a turnaround, and the access will only become active upon completion of those projects at the end of the reconstruction of the house on that point.
I think the variance has, pardon me, but I think that we need to have the variance either approved or disapproved this evening with the conditions that, that you suggested, and which we've agreed to.
Okay, then I'll move that we approve them as conditioned this evening, and that they provide the turnaround as well as the dry hydrant at that point.
And the road has to be constructed
And
to
we also have to
Queensbury's
say
town.
that it's the variance request under consideration is the minimum necessary.
But don't you have to add that Queensbury thing with the road
So the road will be completed to
specs?
to town road specs and in compliance with what the town requires.
The road will be completed in town road specs.
The 34 feet at the end of the terminal, at the end of the road right now will be completed.
Or whatever it is. If it's, yeah.
34, whatever.
So I have a motion, can I have a second?
I'll second it, Mr. Chairman.
Call the vote, please.
Mr. Henkel?
Yes.
Mrs. Hamlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Hayward?
No.
Mr. Yuriko?
No.
Mr. Kuhl?
Yes.
Mr. Underwood?
Yes.
Mr. McCabe?
Yes.
We thank you for listening to us, and I will wipe off the stand here. Third time.
And I'd like to thank the audience for their input. It's very important to us. Our next application is area variance 27-2020, MH Imperial Homes, 173 Sunnyside Road.
The applicant proposes to place a 1,456 square foot home on a .45 acre parcel that is located in the RR3A zone, where the front and rear setbacks are 100 feet and side setbacks are 75 feet. The home is to be 70 feet from the front property line due to land sides of 24 feet on each side. The relief requested is for setbacks as per section 179-3-040 dimensional requirements. The applicant proposes to place a 1,456 square foot home with front and side entry deck, where the front setback is to be 77 feet, west side setback are to be 20 feet. The east side setback is to be 24 feet, and the rear setback is to be greater than 100 feet. The front setback is 100 feet, and the side setback is 75 feet. The project may be considered to have little to no impact on the neighboring properties. The feasible alternatives may be limited due to the lot size and the zone. The relief may be considered moderate, relevant to the code. The side setback is 55 feet on the west side and 51 feet on the east side. The front setback is 23 feet. The project as proposed may be considered to have minimal impact on the environmental conditions of the site or area. I'm going to do this one. And the project as proposed may be considered self-created. The applicant proposes to place a 1,456 square foot home on an existing 0.45 acre parcel in a rural residential 3-acre zone. The submission indicates a new driveway area of about 1,120 square feet to be installed, and the existing 160 square foot carport remain. The plan showed the approximate location of the proposed septic and well that are subject to review by the Building and Codes Department.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. State your name for the record, please.
Greg Hewlett, MH Imperial Homes.
Anything to add?
The property's for sale. We made a purchase offer on the property with the contingency that it could be a buildable lot. Right now, it's a 100-foot wide by 196 foot deep lot with 75-foot side setbacks, which gives you a negative 50-foot build envelope in the center, and 100-foot front and back, which gives you a negative 4 feet front to back. So obviously, it's a lot that has no value at all, other than as a field. So I'm not interested in purchasing it unless we can actually build on it. So we did the due diligence to try to figure out where wells and septic locations and make sure that those well and septic setback requirements could be met on all the lots. I will throw a side note that you will see me again in a couple months because we've made a similar purchase offer on the lot next door, which is exactly the same size and has exactly the same issues. What we're proposing to build is a small 1,400 square foot ranch, which is consistent with the character of the neighborhood. And we would like to do that if we would be granted the variance to do so.
So do we have questions of the applicant?
I just have one. You're going to put a double modular in, is that, or you build it as a stick built?
No, it's a modular home.
Modular, okay, thank you.
Other questions?
And obviously, it's exactly the one that you have here.
Yeah, it's actually one that I currently own that sits on my lot as a display model that we would
Nice.
then be moving to that location. So instead of just giving you drawing elevations, we gave you actual pictures. Gives you a more realistic view of what it was going to be.
So that's not going to change, that's what it's going to be.
That's the house.
Okay.
That's the one.
Other questions? Seeing none, a public hearing has been advertised, and so I'm almost afraid to open the public hearing again. I wanted to be home by midnight. But anyway, so I'll open the public hearing and ask if there's anybody on the outside who would like to call in and speak on this matter. Give us a call at 518-761-8225. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to approach the podium, please come up. Is there any written correspondence?
Yes. These are much shorter. We received the notice for MH Imperial Homes concerning the lot next to our home. My only concern about the request to build a home there is a well that already exists on the rear of that property. The only place to install a septic system would be in front of the existing lot. Our well is in the front of our house, 169 Sunnyside Road. I do not think they meet the requirements where our water would not be affected by the installation of a new septic in the front of the lot of 173 Sunnyside Road. I haven't had any problems with our well over the last 20 years, and I would not like to have any in the future. I also fear that permitting the variance may result in similar variances being passed in the future and that they may devalue our property. For the reasons stated above, we are against the current application of this variance. And these are the current residents of 169 Sunnyside Road, Richard Billings and Michelle Billings. And I have a copy of the same. And there's another letter. We received a notice about the MH Imperial Homes variance to build a lot on lot 173 Sunnyside Road. Our number one concern is that we do not want a trailer / modular home / slab house built on that lot. We feel it would decline the property value of our house. Our other concern is that if we allow a trailer to be built next to us on the lot, that in the future, the area behind our house may become a trailer / mobile home if we allow the changes in the zoning requirements on our side of the street, because we are only zoned for 3 acres. For the reasons above, we are against the variance. Thank you for taking the time to read our concerns. The current residents of 165 Sunnyside Road, and that's Jack Reese and Mary Ellen Reese. And then P.S. I just got through with a motorcycle track behind our home, only because the property was sold. I do not want to see a trailer park behind my home. That's it.
So,
I have no idea what that's all about.
well, it used to be McDermott's Harley Davidson.
Way back when, yeah.
So, they made ample use of that. So do you have any, anything to say about the position of their well versus where you're going to put your septic?
Well, it's interesting because I actually met with them to find out where their septic was. And they put a new septic in the very back of their lot. They told me the story. They put a new septic in the very back of the lot. And there's an existing well on that site, and the town mandated that they had to be more than 100 feet from that well that was on that site to the back, to the location, the end of their leach field. And so we measured it out, and it's actually 101 feet to where their septic system starts, which is about 15 feet less than the separation between where their well is and where we're proposing a septic system. And they knew that. So they actually know the regulations because they went through it themselves, so it's an interesting statement. It doesn't make any sense. But we demonstrated on the mapping that we will exceed the 100 feet, and obviously we wouldn't be given a building permit if we couldn't. And I don't want to own a lot if I can't build.
I have a question. You said you will be back here in a few months for a lot next door.
Yes.
Are either one of them these lots?
No, so 169, if you're, as I'm looking at the wall there, is to the left. The lot that's darkened is 173. The lot to the right is 175, which has the garage in the back. That's the one that we have an additional purchase offer on that is also contingent upon variance.
Are you putting this modular, you're not putting it on the foundation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So it really is not going to look like a trailer, is it?
You're looking at pictures of the house.
So it's going to be...
There's a long-standing misunderstanding between modular
Right.
and manufactured homes.
I know.
Manufactured homes are homes that are constructed to a building code that is called the HUD code.
Mm-hmm.
Modular homes don't exist. There's no such thing as a modular home. Modular is a method of construction that complies with the residential building code. That's the only type of house that it is a residential code house. The method of construction, like log homes, like timber frames, like everything else, is different than what we call stick-built. But the actual end result in the building code that it has to comply with is the same. So once the house is completed, it is not a modular home anymore, it's just a house. Because there is no building code called modular homes.
So I think we faced that with across the street, down a little bit.
Well, that was me also, and that
Yeah.
is a manufactured home. Without running off the rails here, they also can't, the zoning, according to the state, can no longer be restricted from manufactured homes, which is why that house was allowed to be built. But that's not my intention here. That is the house that I'm putting there.
Thank you.
That's a full basement.
What's that?
Full basement.
Nope.
Oh.
Nope. It's frost protected.
So it's a
slab
crawl
system,
space.
Frost protected, frost walls, and yep.
Other questions? So at this particular time, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to poll the board, and I'm going to start with Roy.
Yeah, I don't see any problems with this application. I'd be in favor of it.
John?
Yeah, it's very minimal request. I'd be on board with it too.
Ron?
Yeah, I mean, this is, it's zoned in a 3-acre zoning and none of lots of that, so, no, I'm in favor.
Michelle?
I'm also in favor, although it seems significant on paper, when you look at the neighborhood, it really fits in with it here.
Jim?
It's more or less what fits with the rest of the neighborhood.
Kathy?
I'm going to be the oddball and say I'm not in favor.
Okay. And I'm going to support the project. Again, it's kind of like most of the other homes in that particular area. So at this particular time, I'm going to ask for a motion from Michelle.
I'd like to make a motion to approve area variance number AV 27-2020 from MH Imperial Homes at 173 Sunnyside Road, tax map number 279.17-1-63. Upon review of the application materials and information supplied this evening, and upon consideration of the criteria specified in section 179-14-080A of the Queensbury Town Code, in Chapter 267 of New York State Town Law, and after deliberation tonight, you find as follows. There is not going to be an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood nor a detriment to nearby properties. Although, I'll just restate that and just say it will, this style of home will fit perfectly in the character of the neighborhood, as well as the current setbacks of the neighboring homes. Feasible alternatives were considered by the board and were reasonable and have been included to minimize the request. The requested variance is not substantial because the setbacks mimic those in the neighborhood. There is not an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. As demonstrated by the applicant tonight, they've considered septic and discussed it with the neighbors. So the alleged difficulty is self-created. In addition, the board finds that the benefit to the applicant from granting the requested variance would outweigh the resulting detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community. The board also finds that the variance request under consideration is the minimum necessary. Based on the above findings, I make a motion to approve area variance number 27-2020.
So I have a motion. Could I have a second? I'll second. Call the vote, please.
Mr. Yuriko?
Yes.
Mrs. Hamlin?
No.
Mr. Kuehl?
Yes.
Mr. Henkel?
Yes.
Mr. Underwood?
Yes.
Mrs. Hayward?
Yes.
Mr. McCabe?
Yes. Congratulations. Do you want your drawings and stuff?
Up from Laura, that's fine. I didn't touch the podium and I left my stuff over there, so I'll just wipe off your mic.
Okay. Thank you. So our next application is AV 23-2020, Gary Higley, 23 J Road.
The applicant proposes to construct a 590 square foot garage addition to an existing home of 3,026 square feet. Includes porches, decks with a floor area of 4,189 square feet. Proposed floor area of 4,306 square feet. The project includes removal of a 473 square foot metal building. The project is in addition to a previous 328 square foot addition to the home. Relief requested is for setbacks and permeability, and that's per section 179-3-040 dimensional requirements and section 179-5-020 garages. The project is to construct a 590 square foot addition this 7.7 feet to the north side of the property line, where a 20-foot setback is required. Relief is also requested for site permeability, where 66.2% is proposed, existing 66.7%, required is 75%. Minor impact to the neighborhood may be anticipated. Feasible alternatives may be considered limited due to the location of the existing home and lot configuration. The relief requested may be considered moderate relevant to the code. Relief requested 12.3 feet from the north property line. Relief for permeability is 8.8%. The project will have minimal impact on the physical or environmental conditions, and the difficulty may be considered self-created. The staff comments, the applicant proposes a 590 square foot garage addition to an existing home. The plan show the location of the addition is to be in line with the existing home and to be away from the shoreline.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for hearing this. Susan and I are asking.
First you gotta.
I'm sorry, Gary Higley, 23 J Road. It's actually Lake George, New York, is the mailing address.
We consider you Queensbury, or else
Thank
you wouldn't
you.
be dealing with us.
Susan and I are looking to remove an existing garage that is 14 feet from the lake as we speak, and replacing it with a garage that will be 65 feet from the lake. We'll be removing blacktop. We will be improving our permeability, and we'll be improving stormwater management. The big thing here is we have asked Nick Rowell from Warren County Soil and Water. I think he did submit a plan to you. I think they have it. So as the chairman of the planning board said last night, we're basically replacing a garage with a stormwater management plan. That is our goal. Thank you.
So do we have questions of the applicant?
Yeah, could I address the applicant, Mr. Chairman?
Of course.
Mr. Higley.
Yes, sir.
I seem to remember you here recently. Are you building a McMansion one room at a time, sir?
I'm building it as I can afford it, yes.
Tell me one thing, no, serious, as I looked at your plan, you're not gonna have a door going through Gary's TV room? I mean, if it rains, you got your poor wife Susan's gonna have to walk outside and get wet, right?
The original plan for the Gary's TV room has the door in it. We right now have to sit down with for the building permit, we have to sit down and see what we can actually do.
Because I would encourage you to put a door through the TV room.
We're talking about putting a door through the garage. The garage, we're not going to have any access into, the garage is actually going to have a firewall between, even though it's attached.
Okay.
It will not be, you won't walk into the house from there. You'll still have to walk out to get into the house. So we're talking about possibly going in from the garage into the crawl space that's under the house,
Gotcha.
rather than put that door there.
Okay.
The issue that I'm not a builder, so I don't know this, and I don't know the town regulations very well, so the floodplain is going to be an issue. So we're not sure what we can do and what we can't do until we sit down. Am I correct?
You're correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm fogging up here.
You might need a ramp for that door as you get older, you know.
Well, the garage is actually, the garage is going to be built on a slope, so it's not going to be just flat because of where we are. So any water that does go in is going to come out. It's really, we have a, as I said last night at the planning board, we really have a stormwater problem on our property. The water runs down J Road, which is just natural. That's the way the land flows, and then it comes down our driveway. So when that driveway was put in 30 years ago, stormwater management wasn't around. It just comes down and it ends up right in the lake. This plan is going to solve that issue. And that's really the main reason we're doing it.
Thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, public hearing has been advertised, and so at this particular time, I'm going to open the public hearing. Invite anybody on the outside who wants to speak on this matter to give us a call at
761-8225. I'll ask anybody in the audience that would like to come forward and speak, do so now. Is there any written correspondence on this particular application?
Yes, as adjoining neighbors of the Higleys, we approve of the plan to remove the existing garage away from the lake and build a new garage that will improve drainage. And that's signed by Tracy Taylor, 21 J Road, and Vic Celadon, 29 J Road.
So we got to just wait for a couple of minutes to give anybody an opportunity to give us a call here.
But off the record, Gary, the house next door really came out nice.
It did come out nice.
Boy, they did a nice job.
They totally rebuilt the entire house after built it.
Mm.
And they new subflooring, they ripped everything right out and started over. So they came out beautiful, and they did a nice job.
Did the Osprey sign off?
No, the Osprey didn't sign off on this one.
You know, I have another off-the-record question. Right, every year we have two offspring, correct? They have offspring. They leave. Who comes back?
The parents. The parents come back.
The parents come back.
It's the same pair year after year that's there.
I mean, I'm down in the Keys in the wintertime and we have osprey nests all over. And I kind of wonder, okay, they migrate. Well, where does the other couple go? You know, the offspring.
I'm not an expert on this, but my parents have documented this for years and years and years, and actually, they took photos of the birds up close.
Really?
And actually, because of their markings, you can see that they're the same pair year after year.
Really?
And I've noticed it too. I mean, I can pick out the male and the female I can look up in the air and tell you, oh, that's the female and that's the male, or which way they are, and when they come. Supposedly, and this is, again, I don't know, supposedly they fly to Brazil. They fly across the Gulf to Brazil. And the parents take the chicks down, or the father leaves early. And the mother takes the chick down with her. And then the chicks stay down there for up to 2 years, a year or 2 years, before they migrate back.
Really?
They won't be able to do that this year with the quarantine though, right?
It's like for the nest in the
eagle battle was amazing.
Yeah, I know, that was, yeah. They saw the eagle today.
Yeah. He's back and forth on again, on again.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look like anybody's going to call in from the outside, so at this particular time, I'm going to close the public hearing and poll the board, and I'm going to start with Ron.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's a good request, removing that older metal thing and putting this garage, further away from the lake. The house itself with the 7 foot, it's pre-existing, non-conforming because of that, but it's a good addition. I'd be in favor of the way it's presented.
Michelle?
I'm also in favor. It's a win-win for you and the neighborhood.
Jim?
Yeah, it's FAR compliant, even though this is the third time you've been back before us, I think, so we're used to seeing you here. At the same time, I think that the permeability issue is a minor change from what it is now, so I'm in favor of it.
Kathy?
I agree. I'm in favor.
Roy?
Yeah, I'm on board.
John?
And they're definitely being good stewards, taking out that metal building and putting some stormwater management there that's gonna connect, take care of some of that water off J Road, so they're doing a positive thing for all the lake people, so I'd be on board with it.
And I'll support the project also. I think we're making a significant improvement to the environment and also to the appearance of continue to improve the appearance of the property. So at this particular time, I'm going to seek a motion. I'm going to ask Ron to make a motion here.
Did you say me, Mr. Chairman? Well,
Yes, I
thank
did.
you. Thank you for the opportunity.
You're a resident Glen Lake expert, so I have to.
Well, no, Mr. Underwood is that. I'm just a rookie.
Well, he made the last motion, so.
I'd like to recommend that we approve area variance AV 23-2020, Gary Higley. As per the document prepared by staff, we find that there is really not an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood nor a detriment to nearby properties, as this helps or is attached to the existing house and it blends in and takes away the older older building, which was closer to the lake. Feasible alternatives are limited and have been considered and are reasonable, and we have included them to minimize the request. The requested variance is not really substantial, as it's an improvement. There is not an adverse impact on the physical and environmental conditions of the neighborhood or district. The alleged difficulty, we could suggest it is self-created, but it's not really. It's, as I said earlier, an improvement. In addition, the board finds that the benefit to the applicant for granting the requested variance would outweigh the resulting detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood community. In addition, the board also finds that the variance requested under consideration is a minimum necessary. For that reason, I recommend that we approve area variance AV 23-2020.
So I have a motion, can I have a second?
Jim, second.
Call the vote, please.
Mrs. Hamlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Hayward?
Yes.
Mr. Henkel?
Yes.
Mr. Kuehl?
Yes.
Mr. Yuriko?
Yes.
Mr. Underwood?
Yes.
Mr. McCabe?
Yes.
So I guess the barbecue you had, nobody that came to the barbecue, so nobody supported you this
I
time.
was the lonesome.
Thank you. Gary?
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Do you need more or no?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Hey, have a good one.
Thank you for your help.
Thank you.
So, Lord, MH Imperial Homes?
Yeah, if you have them, I'll take it.
Thank you. See you later.
And then you have an adjournment.
No, I know that.
All right.
So I just wanted to make a comment. I'm sure we haven't heard the last of the Holly Lane people. I think we went to battle with them.
Those Kroll.
Didn't they do a 76 on us before, or 79 on us before? The dual
78.
properties where, you know, they wanted to change the footprint slightly and
That was down further, wasn't that the one where two feet?
but the guy that did all the talking.
Kroll there.
He was the one that led the lawsuit.
Article
on that.
78.
So I suspect that, you know, we're going to face some sort of action there. But I think that we're on solid grounds because everything that they talked about was really site plan related. And, you know, again, we don't speak to the quality of the project. All we do is speak about the variance. And again, I think that we've approved a number of smaller road frontages than is required, particularly in an area where, you know, it's pretty congested. I don't think that the 50 feet is really required in that particular area.
Be different, it was gonna be a big development or something. It's gonna be one house.
Yeah, really. So I think we're on pretty good grounds there, but I would not be surprised if we face some sort of legal action over that. So with that happy note, I make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
Hey, Jim, we met